Hello and welcome to MovieTown, the LA Revival Cinema Scene Show. I'm Andy Viner, and I'm going to take you through MovieTown's July Revival Cinema picks in LA and parts beyond. And I think when pulling up all the calendars for this month, there was one series that just popped right off the page, and I really could recommend seeing just about every film in this series. I mean, there's over 30, and this is the Ultra CINEMATHEQUE 70. This is American CINEMATHEQUE's 70mm fest. It's showing movies showing both at the Egyptian and the Arrow, and just a wide range of kind of old, from 50s all the way to, the Brutalists from this last year. So we want to start with one in particular, and that's Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean's 1962 epic, Peter O'Toole. And the reason I start with this one is that, the 70mm version of Lawrence of Arabia plays almost every year or two, it seems, in LA. And I long had it on my list of, I can't believe I haven't seen this yet. And I've been holding off rewatching the film at home just because I wanted to, the next time I saw it, to take it in the theater in 70mm. And so I finally did that last year. It played at the Vista in 70mm for like a week-long run, and it didn't disappoint at all. It's, I mean, it's truly kind of a one-of-a-kind theatrical experience to like give yourself over to this, really long runtime intermission. I think I did the 7:30 show, and I mean, you're getting out close to midnight. So I would say if you haven't seen Lawrence of Arabia, either in the theater or on 70mm, I think this is like the must of July for me, at least. And then, going down the list, they're showing The Searchers and The Wild Bunch. So The Searchers, John Ford's 1956 film, that's the one that I think I would pick of these two, just for the like Vista, grand scale of the cinematography. And I've never seen The Searchers on the big screen. I have seen The Wild Bunch, and it plays great, but I think The Searchers in 70mm is pretty special. And then my next pick in this series is a little bit more of an askew pick, and that's Howard the Duck, the 1986 film featuring the comic book character Howard the Duck. This was a big, I'm not sure if George Lucas was supposed to direct this or if he was just producing it, but it's directed by Willard Huyck. And the reason I pick this is that it's a really maligned film. Like, its reputation is pretty bad. It's like that it was a disaster and a total bomb at the box office. But I just remember loving this movie when I saw it in '86 as a kid and seeing it a lot. And so I want to revisit it to kind of see what still works in it. And I love that that American Cinematheque is showing this in addition to kind of these classics. And so another classic that I've actually never seen in the theater, I'm really excited to get out and see this one, shown in July on two dates, July 16th and 20th, is Jacques Tati's 1967 Playtime. His really modern, urban, in an office building, Tati playing his Hulot character, going through modern life and really taking a comedic turn at that. And then the next one is another more modern-ish one from 1990, and that's Total Recall, the Paul Verhoeven, Arnold Schwarzenegger sci-fi film. And this is another one that was like a real favorite of mine when it came out. I even remember picking up the novelization of the movie. And this was Verhoeven's follow-up from 87's RoboCop, and, kind of much bigger scale, huge star in Schwarzenegger. This is kind of Schwarzenegger, peak Schwarzenegger at this time. And I mean, this is a really fun movie. I watched the 4K disc last year, and I think it will play even better in a theater with a crowd because there's so many good laughs. And the sets and the kookiness. There's a real like camp to this. It almost reminds me of like a little better version of Schumacher's Batman and Robin, like if it was a little successful. And so I'm really looking forward to it. It's getting a 70 millimeter release is pretty incredible. And so then the last one, also showing twice, July 20th, 27th. This is Robert Altman's 1993 film based on the Raymond Carver short stories, Shortcuts. And this was one of those that I didn't see in the theater initially in the 90s. I really have this like vivid memory of going to the video store, and this was one of those 2 tape rentals. So it would really stick out on the shelf, and always like contemplating and looking at the box. It had a good poster, good box. And finally, it was probably a few years later, finally, working up the courage to rent this like long running time, commit to it. And I mean, I remember loving it then, and I haven't seen it in a really long time. And certainly I still haven't ever seen it in the theater. And I didn't know that this was a 70 millimeter film. So to see a print of this, I think is a really unique and, won't come along very often on the revival scene. So those are like my 6 Ultra 70 American Cinematheque Fest recs, but there are so many incredible films in this, both from, you have modern, like Inception, Aliens. I would just say check this out and try to see a couple this month for sure. And then, next I want to jump, we're in the outdoor summer movie season. So I wanted to highlight one CINESPIA screening for the month. And this is the one that immediately jumped out to me that I think would be so much fun to see with a CINESPIA crowd in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And that's ROMY and MICHELE'S high school reunion from 1997. This is director David Mirkin. And this was a movie I didn't see in theaters at that time and wasn't like hyper aware of. I really only found it in the 2000s watching it on DVD at home. I've never seen it in the theater. And I really put it up there. I put Mira Sorvino's comedic performance up there with some of the great like female comedic performances of all time. I'm not going to put it at the level of kind of Rosalind Russell's greatest screwball efforts, but it's got a place for me, and it's just so unusual. She does this like crazy baritone accent that could have really gone the wrong way. It might even go the wrong way for some people, but because it's so unique. But I think she really pulls it off. And then of course she's got Lisa Kudrow as the co-star, in kind of equally weird. She's at her friend's like peak fame at this point, and I think she's, plays kind of the goofball oddity, and they play themselves in the high school, like flashback scenes, which is really fun. And Kudrow has this like crazy scoliosis brace on. And I would call this film like a delight. This is like a really delightful, fun comedy. A lot of it was shot actually in Tucson, where I grew up. So it's kind of fun seeing a few sites there for me. But I would place it pretty high on kind of 90s comedies lists. And then, the next one I want to highlight here is very, very, very different. This is a film from 1926, a silent film, For Heaven's Sake, director Sam Taylor. This is a Harold Lloyd film. And so this shows at the Old Town Music Hall in El Segundo. And if you don't know about these screenings, they have a mighty Wurlitzer organ from the 20s. Like in pristine condition, and they do silent films with live accompaniment at least twice a month. And I went for the first time earlier this year. I saw Hitchcock's silent The Lodger, and it was a sold out crowd, packed. I think, Hitchcock is probably a big reason for that. I saw another one that was a really good crowd, but not sold out. That was Douglas Fairbanks' The Black Pirate, which was equally is fantastic of a screening. But, beyond just the films being incredible, the organists who do the live accompaniment are just virtuosos. To watch this and the amount of time and effort that they have to put in to be prepared to play for 90 minutes nonstop. And they even do this incredible prelude with like a light show and stuff. It's one of the most unique revival cinema experiences I think you can find in LA. So I highly, highly recommend this. And then, so this one going from El Segundo to a little bit south, this is showing, if you want something really unique for the 4th of July weekend, this is July 3rd and 4th. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is showing at the Long Beach Art Theater. This is Tobe Hooper's 1974, seminal horror film. And what's really unique about this screening is it's on 16 millimeter. So the screening series, See It on 16 millimeter, that does screenings around Orange County and LA, is showing their print of this. And I don't think I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is probably the one film that is like that almost should be seen on 16 millimeter. It just feels like it should be played in like, a backwoods barn with like one light bulb in the back, and like somebody's playing this for a small crowd or something in like no AC, height of summer. But I think that's a really cool screening. And then next, July 10th, I wanted to highlight CINEFILE Video out in Santa Monica is doing like micro cinema screenings in their video store, where they'll pull up, 20, 30 chairs and project onto a screen. And this one I wanted to highlight because there's been a real uptick in VHS screenings around town. And so this is a VHS screening of 1987's Lady Beware, starring Diane Lane, directed by Karen Arthur. And this is presented by Physical Media Society, who has another screening I'll mention. But this one, I'd never heard of this film, but like a young Diane Lane thriller. She plays like a window dresser for like a department store in New York, and people watch her set up the displays, and she ends up having a stalker. This sounds really, really good, and so I would put that on there. I've seen a few of these VHS screenings around town, and there's an energy and uniqueness to them, even though the quality is undeniably poor, but there is something unique about. I've seen some of the Whammy analog ones. I've seen at Video Archive Cinema Club, and so I like that CINEFILE is doing this as well. Oh, and so this next one is actually at a venue I haven't seen a film screening of yet, but this is the Bob Baker Marionette Theater in Highland Park, and they're showing co-presented with Hollywood Entertainment, who does a lot of great screens around town. This is July 12th, Big Top Pee-wee from 1988, director Randall Kleiser. And of course, this is the sequel to Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the incredible Tim Burton film that kind of introduced us all to Paul Rubens' Pee-wee character, Pee-wee Herman character. And I've rewatched Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and it really holds up. It's actually showing some around town this month, but I'm really interested to see the sequel, because I remember liking it. I mean, Pee-wee Herman was a big deal for me growing up, and I remember liking this sequel a lot more than, my peers at the time. But I haven't revisited it since, 86 or 87. So I'll be really interested to kind of give that another turn. And so now I want to jump. This is another, I want to jump to highlight some films at the Vista. I really like, I kind of think their entire weekend matinee slate this month is just fantastic. Like I would see all of these movies in the theater. I think I hope to see at least 2 or 3 of these. So the first, July 4th weekend, this is showing the 5th and 6th. And these weekend matinees are 10 a.m. shows at the Vista. I did one during my cinema crawl a couple months ago. I saw the 10 a.m. weekend matinee of Thunderball, the Sean Connery James Bond film, the fourth in the series, and it was just such an incredible screening. It played so well to a crowd of like families, cinephiles, James Bond fanatics. It was an awesome time at the movies. So I think they're getting some pretty good crowds out for these early shows. And so July 5th and 6th, they're starting out very strong. They're showing E.T., the extraterrestrial. Of course, the 82 Steven Spielberg film. If somebody asked me like for a favorite Spielberg, this is my go-to. It still just holds up so well for me, even though I love a lot of his later stuff. But this is the one that I think is kind of truly a gem in all of Spielberg's stuff. And I've never seen it on film. I saw the 2002 20th anniversary release, and it may have been on film when I saw that, but I've never seen, that was kind of, there's been a few small changes. I'm pretty certain I hope it's like the original film print release would be pretty incredible to see. And if you haven't revisited E.T. in a long time, seeing it at this 10 a.m. at the Vista is going to be pretty fantastic. And so the next weekend, July 12th and 13th at 10 a.m. is A Boy Named Charlie Brown. This is the first Charlie Brown feature, the Bill Melendez and the incredible Vince Guaraldi scores. And I haven't seen this since I was a kid, like on TV. So I'm really interested to see like how a Charlie Brown feature plays in the theater, because I'm a big Charlie Brown fan. I think even the comic book strips themselves, if you go back, especially they released all the volumes. If you go back to some of those early volumes, it's a pretty incredible work of art, like when taken all together. And then the next weekend in this series, the 19th and 20th, is Buck Privates, a 1941 Abbott and Costello movie, director Arthur Lubin. And I have to admit, I haven't seen a lot of Abbott and Costello movies. I can't, one doesn't come to mind. So I think seeing one of those in the theater would be really fun with this crowd. And then one of my favorite comedians of all time, the next weekend, July 26th and 27th, this is W.C. Fields' International House. And I've never seen this feature. I mean, I have a box set of W.C. Fields DVDs that I just love. But yeah, I would love to check this one out. This is from 1933, director A. Edward Sutherland, International House. So, just a great 4-film series running at the Vista this month. And so I want to jump to a much smaller theater. This is another micro cinema, Whammy Analog, that I've highlighted a number of times, and actually shot my second episode with them. And I just love this place. It's a VHS store, but also has a micro cinema that I've seen a couple screenings at. I did recently saw a stuck on VHS double feature from my cinema crawl, and that was a Wings Hauser straight to video, Wings Hauser directed and starring double feature, The Art of Dying and Living to Die, and those were so great. And so I wanted to highlight, this is coming up right at the beginning of the month, stuck on, or no, it's actually July 20th, later in the month, Street Asylum, director Gregory Dark, but starring, of course, Wings Hauser from 1990. So that's kind of a must for me. And then this one really caught my eye on July 10th, a 2004 film, a documentary called Camp Hollywood, director Stephen Markle. And this is presented by Home Video Museum and LA Days. And this is a Canadian filmmaker who came out and shot on mini DV in the early 2000s. He came and stayed at the fabled fabled Hollywood hotel where the Highland Gardens Hotel, where tons of actors over the years kind of stayed and got their start, like a residency hotel. And this is like very gritty, like on the ground, observational dock, at the hotel and on the Hollywood Strip. And so I'm really excited to see that. And then, jumping down south again, this is actually another theater featured on one of my more recent episodes, the Frida Cinema in Santa Ana. If you haven't been down here, this is like maybe the best revival scene right now. I really think, and in LA and Orange County, they just get such great crowds to so many different kinds of movies out there. And I think the programming is really incredible. I'm going to highlight just two films this month. So July 24th, I've been seeing this promoted. It's Art House Theater Day. I don't, if you all have tuned into that. It's something that director Sean Baker is the ambassador for, with his producing partner, Sam Kwan. And so the Frida is one of the participating theaters, and so they're showing Tangerine, Sean Baker's 2015 feature, shot on like Santa Monica Boulevard, kind of the trans streetwalker scene out there. Just a great film. If you liked Nora and haven't kind of revisited his older stuff yet, this one is a really fun revisit. Both, similar to Anora, like very funny, but also kind of like high stakes, melodrama, gritty. It's a really fun one. And if you look up Art House Theater Day, it's in participating theaters, there's like 10 different movies that are showing around the country at a ton of theaters. And then the other one I wanted to highlight here is the July 26th Giallo-thon. This is being put on by Cinematic Void, and Jim Branscombe over there does like great programming. And this has become really one of his signature series that he's taken around. He does it obviously for American Cinematheque up in LA, and I think been taking this on the road. And the four films in this are What Have You Done to Solange, 1972, director Massimo Dallamano, Don't Torture a Duckling from 72. That's a Lucio Fulci directed feature. Then you have The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, 1970. I don't know if that's something of a take on A Citizen Above Suspicion. And then 1973's Torso, director Sergio Martino. So that should be a really fun, and I think it's $25 for like 4 films. So pretty awesome time there. The Alamo Draft House does some great revival programming there along with their first run movies. And so this one is a South Korean folk horror title that I hadn't heard of before. I knew this director. So this is Io Island from 1977, director Kim Ki-young, like very influential South Korean director on kind of the very influential to all the South Korean directors we know today, whether it's Bong Joon-ho. And then, another one-off I want to highlight is Lemley Theaters is also similar to Alamo Drafthouse. Maybe a little bit less known for the revival stuff, but they have one on July 7th. They're showing the documentary Heartworn Highways. And this is one of the great, music docs of all time. Certainly, I think the best country music documentary, and, highlighting, the Townes Van Zandt stuff is, I think, the stuff that really jumps off the screen for this. And that's from 1976, James Zesplasky. And then some others. Oh, so last month, I featured Philosophical Research Society on my monthly episode. And I want to jump into, they've got just a great series called US Tour is their screening series for the month. And they have one weekend, July 11th, 12th, 13th, that all 3 films are just a really interesting mix for me. So the first one is a collection of short docs from the director Tony Gans. I've actually never seen these. I saw the trailer promo for this when I was at a screening at Philosophical Research Society last month. And so these are all presented by Seventh House Screenings, is kind of the in-house screening arm there. And they like just very kitschy, kind of off the beaten path Americana. And they're actually calling this America, Everything You've Ever Dreamed Of, is sort of the title for this series of short docs from Tony Gans. And then another series of short docs the following night, July 12th. This is the films of Les Blanc and Maureen Gosling. So of course, Les Blanc is probably a name familiar to most of you. And they're showing Out in the Woods, Sprout Wings and Fly, Del Mero Corazon, and Hot Pepper. And Hot Pepper is really the only one that jumps off that I've definitely seen. And Maureen Gosling's going to be there in person. So I think that's a pretty cool screening. And then July 13th, they're showing the Wayne Wang 1982 film, Chan is Missing. And I've never actually seen this. So I think it's always been on my list. It's a very important early American indie. And so I'm really excited they're showing that. And then next I want to jump to, of course, one of the big theaters on the revival scene, Vidiots and Eagle Rock. And there's two films that I think look really good this month. And that's July 19th, Gremlins 2, The New Batch in 35 millimeter. This is director Joe Dante's 1990 follow-up to, of course, the enormous hit Gremlins. And, Gremlins 2, when it came out, it wasn't as well received as Gremlins, but I think it really has its fans. And I haven't revisited it, I don't think, since its theatrical run, or maybe when it was playing on HBO or, renting on VHS with friends in like just the early 90s. So I really want to see how that holds up. And then the other one that really caught my eye is Eyes of Laura Mars, the 1978 Irving Kershner film. And this one, this is with Faye Dunaway, who has like visions. This movie was recommended to me so long ago, and I've just never pulled the trigger on it to like grab it at the video store, find it. And so, this kind of reminded me that I really need to see this. And Karina Longworth is actually going to be there doing an intro, and she's going to be running a pop-up vintage shop at the Micro Cinema. See what she has there. And then let's keep jumping through. Oh, and Gardena Cinema. This one I thought looked really fun. This is a William Sachs double feature with his 1977 The Incredible Melting Man, and then a mystery movie on VHS. I watched the 4K disc release of this last year, and it's really fun. I mean, it's really known, the effects of this guy like melting over the course of the movie is what really gets referenced the most, and it's pretty outstanding. And then they're showing a mystery VHS. This is presented again by Physical Media Society, co-presented actually with Horror Movie Business. And so I don't know what the VHS is, could be. I don't know William Sachs's other movies that well, so that could be really fun. And then over at the Eastwood, this is actually, I went last month for the first time to the Eastwood to see Hong Kong Cinema Club's inaugural screening. They showed Sammo Hung's 87 feature, Eastern Condors, and that was awesome. Just like a really great first outing for them. And so they're back this month, July 16th, with the early Jackie Chan film, The Young Master. So I think I would highly recommend getting out to their screening. They do like this really cool pamphlet booklet with essays and photos from the film. That was really cool and great, gave a great intro. And then this one also caught my eye, Demon Wind from 1990, kind of like a psychedelic horror thriller something. I don't know, it looks really, really cool. Director Charles Philip Moore, and this is being presented by Certified Forgotten. So I think that would be a really fun one. These really jumped out to me. So the Academy Museum, I don't know if they were doing this because of American Cinematheque's Ultra 70 millimeter Fest, but they also have a bunch of 70 millimeter screenings this month. And the two that I thought like looked great are um, James Cameron's 1989 film, The Abyss. I had a real run with this movie when it was on HBO, like in the early 90s. I watched it a lot, but haven't seen it probably since then. So to see it in the theater, I think would be pretty awesome. So that's July 9th. And then also in 70 millimeter later in the month, July 19th, is Walter Hill's rock musical, Streets of Fire. I've only seen this at home. This is a really fun, like takes itself, like it plays certainly as camp now, but like the actors and directing is all like, let's take this serious, like let's play this movie um, like to its full extent. And so I think that would be a really fun screening. I mean, Streets of Fire plays occasionally around town, but to see it, a film print, a 70 millimeter film print is pretty awesome. And then another on film, this is on 35 millimeter nitrate. So pretty like special occasion to see. This is an Ernest Lubitsch film from 46, Clooney Brown. So to see a Lubitsch film on 35 nitrate is a pretty special outing and won't come along too often, even here in LA. So, jump into Brain Dead Studios. They have two that I thought looked really good. This is Mezzanine Films is presenting the French 80s indie that I've never seen. I hadn't really even heard of this film, Rosa La Rose Filet Public. It's kind of like a gritty sex melodrama. From the description, kind of almost sounded like a grittier Almodovar, but I thought it sounds great. That's July 15th. And July 24th, this film looked really fun. Love Doll's Superstar. This is presented by the UCLA Punk Archive, and it's about like a girls punk group taking on the man, like very DIY John Waters feel to it. So that looked really awesome. And then, the new Bev for the month. The new Bev is always, kind of the hardest to go through their calendar and choose the best. There's just so many and such a variety. But this month, what really jumped out is this first July 4th weekend on the 4th and 5th, the double feature of The Return of the Living Dead and Repo Man. So the first film in the double feature, Dan O'Bannon's 1985 sequel to The Night of the Living Dead. And like both of these are very kind of that like 80s neon kind of punk vibe. And then of course, Repo Man from 84, Alex Cox. This gets played a lot around town for good reason. I mean, it's just one of the great LA movies of all time. And to see these both on film back to back is pretty fantastic. And then, this one I'm really excited about. I've already got tickets to this and it's sold out. But they have a standby line that I'm sure will have a decent number of seats, because this is on July 26th. They're showing a 1990s action marathon. I believe it's 4 films. I have no idea what 1990s action could be to them. It could be, more like low end, straight to video kind of stuff. It could be Schwarzenegger. It could be Seagal, Van Damme. I really have no idea. So I'm very excited for that one. And then this one, as a Western fan, really caught my eye. This is at the end of the month, July 30th, 31st. This is a Western director that I hadn't heard of, so I just have to assume this is like straight from the mouth of Tarantino wanting to highlight this director, George Sherman. And this is a double feature of 1949's Red Canyon and 1950's Comanche Territory. And, these kind of older Westerns really get good crowds out at the New Bev. And so I'm definitely going to make that. That looks like a fantastic one. And then kind of to end the wrap up, I wanted to highlight, I hadn't been highlighting too many midnight screenings. And I think for most of us, midnight shows probably were a real gateway into the revival scene, especially if you're not in LA. This might be like the only place the only time you are seeing kind of revival screenings in your town. And so I think it holds a really important place in revival cinema. And so I wanted to highlight a couple titles that jumped out to me because I've kind of, haven't been out as much on the midnight scene, certainly of late. But at the New Art, where I've seen, over the years, seen a bunch of midnight shows, this one looked really great to me. Colossus, the Forbin Project. It's almost kind of like it's from 1970, director Joseph Sargent, a little bit of like a 2001 HAL sort of ripoff where this AI computer, tasked with some of the world's biggest problems, goes against humanity, and we have to, figure out how to take it down. So I think that sounds really cool. And then this one at the Vista, of course, on film, Jackass #2. And I kind of just love the idea of seeing like any Jackass film, like a film print, just to support that. I think it's pretty great. And I don't think I've seen many of the Jackass films in the theater. I was a big, I watched the show a lot in the 90s and 2000s when it was first on. And so I think the theaters, I mean, the theatrical experience of this was less important to me, but I think revisiting these as features has been really fun. I mean, the last one was so good. And so I think that would be a really fun one to get out to. And then this one, just one of my like favorite 80s films. This is at the New Beverly Midnights. This is this first weekend, Saturday, July 5th. And this is Rambo First Blood Part 2. Of course, the sequel to First Blood. And, just it's so interesting that this Rambo movie, the sequel, is really kind of like the Rambo image I think most people have in their mind and kind of what stuck culturally, even though the first Rambo film, the first introduction to John Rambo, is much kind of grittier, much more of a 70s like indie vibe to a degree. And this one, director George P. Cosmatos, it's just like wild, over the top Stallone action. And I even remember being so influenced by, this was probably one of those like first rated R action movies I saw as a kid and just loved. And just the difference in times. I remember buying at the drugstore, they had a Rambo themed little play set you could buy that was like this crazy Bowie knife. He has this incredible like serrated knife that he uses in the film. And then this really weird like green Buddha pendant that he wears in the film. I can't even remember why if somebody gives this to him or if it's just like his thing, but I just remember buying that and like loving. That was one of my favorite toys from the mid 80s. So anyway, that's July MovieTown picks. Have a great time out at the theater. If you see me out at a screen, say hello. I've usually got a couple MovieTown hats with me and love giving them out, so say hello. I'll give you a free hat or promise you one the next time. I look forward to seeing you out in LA.